Hello, you've probably seen on my other videos that there's some fantastic conversions out there. Really good designs, well laid out, great craftsmanship, just joyous vehicles to be in. But there's also bad conversions, poor design, really poor workmanship, dodgy, and some are extremely dangerous. There are loads of examples of these on the forums, and I did contact people just to try and see if I could use the photos, but funnily enough, they didn't want to get the conversion companies into trouble. So I do have a selection here which I have managed to source from some of the converters who I deal with, and also some of the really dodgy things which happened to my vehicle. Let's have a look at them. You won't believe how bad some of them actually are. Firstly, we've got this van with the poorly laid floor. You can see the plywood underneath has been all rotten and it actually needed to be ripped out and completely started afresh. Cost saving using inferior products and actually the wrong materials will only be inevitable. That it's going to cost you more money in the future to actually get these things put right. So do the job right in the first place. Make sure you know what materials that the converter is actually using. So as far as insulation is concerned, there's obviously various different stages. You've got the 4 stages, so I mean this is a bad one here, but you've got the sound deadening, you've got the Dodo mat thermal liner, and you've actually then got the Dodo fleece. Now you will see, and you probably won't even believe this, but some conversions actually use rock wool. Now you wouldn't actually know that. You need to find out from the converter who you're using what products are actually being used. Now this is made of recycled plastic. You don't have to buy Dodo. There are other companies out there who make it. I know B&Q do a product which is extremely similar to the Dodo one. But make sure that it isn't going to be absorbent to the water, because it's just going to lead to disaster in the future. Even more concerning is this one here. Now this vehicle wanted extra seats fitted in the back. The converter decided that he was going to fix these, but instead of bolting the seats through the floor, which you obviously need to do so it's got that secure fixing point, they, believe it or not, they glued them. Yep, glued them. So as you can see here, it's just a complete mess. But that's not the point. The point isn't that the vehicle's a mess and it looks poor. It's dangerous. These seats are not fixed properly. Adhesive is not going to secure your seats to the rear of the vehicle properly to make them safe. Make sure you get the job done properly. Oh my God, this could be a matter of life or death. It is absolutely horrendous. Carpet lining, you may think, is a rather straightforward job, and you might have seen that. I've done mine myself and I'm really pleased with the work which I've done. It did take a lot of time and a lot of patience to get it like that, and that's what you do need to do it, but you also need skill to get it perfect. Now, as you can see here, the conversion company who actually did the original carpet of this has done such a poor job. Don't know what they've done, whether they've just not taken the time over it, whether they've not used so much adhesive as they should do, but it is just a poor job. And also, underneath, there was no sound deadening. There was no insulation. It was just done really cheap. Needs to be put right. The next one is really serious, really dangerous. But before we get onto that, I just want to give you a few ideas on how these things can be avoided. And you need to speak to a reputable converter. There's lots and lots of conversion companies out there, and you need to speak to a reputable one. Now, what we've seen over the last couple of years, obviously with COVID and the van life scene really taking off more than it normally has done, there's a lot of new companies starting out there. That doesn't necessarily mean that these new companies are poor companies, because they might have been making money for one of the bigger conversion companies and they were really professional and they've decided just to go out on their own. So it doesn't necessarily new means poor, but there are a lot which have set up which have not got any experience, or maybe, you know, like me, that they've decided they've done their own van and decided to branch out there and start selling their own conversions. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad either, but what you need to do is you need to research them. You need to speak to other people who've been to that conversion company and actually had a conversion. Go and have a look at the vans, find out what components they're using, have a chat to them about exactly what they're going to do, what products they're going to be using in the vehicle. if you speak to people who've had the vans converted by these companies, then you are going to get a good idea of what workmanship they've done. Go and have a look at the vans which they've done. But forums, the Facebook forums, which are obviously there's abundance of them out there, you can go on the forums and ask them, you know, which company would you recommend in Glasgow? Which conversion company would you recommend in Bolton? Which conversion company would you recommend in the East Midlands? You know, there's lots of good ones throughout the country. You've probably heard me mention before Titan Transporters. You know, so Titan Transporters is somebody who will do a lot of work locally. Or you've got Templeway Campers, or further down in Devon, you've got AI Campers. There's lots of companies around. Now, in the Midlands, you've got Cal's Campers and Vans. Now, oh my God, they are responsible for one of the best vans I've ever seen. T600 Poo, you must have seen it. Absolutely fantastic. Craftsmanship is really good. So, I've seen these experiences, I've seen these examples. Now speak to people, have a look at the forums and ask the questions, who's converted what, and go and see these people. What some people do is they will just go out there and email off a couple of different companies how much you're going to charge to do a full conversion with electrics and a bed and a pop top. But what are you getting for that money? You know, what kind of pop top are they using? Is it going to be a crash tested pop top? Same goes for the bed. What bed are they using? You know, is it going to be one of the high spec beds, or is it just going to be a cheap one? And then as far as the electrics are concerned, which I am going to come on to, what components are they using for that? Do they actually know what they're doing? You can actually find out a heck of a lot about a conversion company by the electrics which they do. So let's get on to electrics. So if you've been following my journey, you will have seen from some of my early videos some of the horrors which I had in my van. Now, my van was done by a professional conversion company, and it was a shocker. We had wires just twisted together and kind of put up. They were bare. Some of them did have a bit of tape round. I had the inverter, which was a cheap and nasty, I can't remember how much it was, 35 quid for a 2000 watt inverter. It wasn't good. The wires hadn't actually been crimped, so it was just loose. Doesn't matter how much tape you put around it, you know, that's not going to give you a solid connection. It needs to be crimped properly. Make sure the electrics of the vehicle are top notch. It's dangerous. You can have a fire. I have seen vans which use single core cable for 240 volts. Now, single core is just one cable within the insulation. Now, as a van, it obviously drives, it moves, it vibrates around. If it vibrates that, and then that one single core breaks, it's going to cause a fault. It's not going to be a good connection, and it could potentially lead to a fire. Cable which should be used for inside your van is multi-core, so you'll see that as you can see on that, there's lots of different cables within the main cable on that, which leads on to another thing. I have seen vans with cables coming from the battery to the battery to battery charger or the voltage sensitive relay, not using the correct cable. I mean, this is a 60mm cable, and this is what was recommended for my vehicle, coming from the battery, because it needs to be able to carry the correct amperage. Some of the cables which I've seen providing this are just thin. Believe it or not, I have seen the current being carried with cables like that. It's just an appetite for disaster. It is just going to cause a fire. Earths. Now, your van has got earth points on it. If you look under the seats, there is actually, under the passengers and the driver's seat, there is a dedicated earth point for earthing things from. There's a few others scattered around the vehicle as well. Don't put your earth through carpet. You do not want to be screwing in your earth point through carpet. It's just dangerous. So dangerous. You should not be doing it. It should not be coming back from a conversion company like that. Something else which I don't like seeing as well is your DC to DC chargers. Now, they've got a heat sink on the back of them, the quality ones, And that's there for a reason, to dissipate the heat, because they generate a lot of heat. If your battery's low and your alternator is going to be feeding it so it can generate the power to charge the battery, it gets hot, really hot. Don't stick it on carpet. It just doesn't, it's just mind-blowing. It shouldn't be on carpet. You know, you read the book and it needs to be in a ventilated area. You'll have seen at the install which I did on mine. I have put mine on a metal plate just so it's got some airflow and it can dissipate that heat a lot more easily. I don't want a build-up of heat in the van. If you've got a van with a smart alternator, which I think all of the T6s have, might be wrong with that, but I think they all have smart alternators, you cannot have a voltage sensitive relay. Yes, they are cheap, really, really cheap, but it'll do you no good. As you might have seen in one of the videos which I did early on, my vehicle was fizzing and hissing because the previous professional company put a voltage sensitive relay to charge my leisure battery when it's got a smart alternator. It was just frying my battery. You need a B2B charger. There's a fantastic product, the C-Tech do a great product, or Victron, which I've got for mine. There's also lots of other companies out there, but it has to be a B2B charger. You can't use the voltage sensitive relay. It is dangerous and it is going to potentially cause a serious incident in your vehicle. A professional company is going to install the correct device in your vehicle. Make sure you know that they know what they're doing by looking at previous examples. A tidy install in a van is going to give a reasonable indication on how they are. A messy install, not good. And something else, 240 volts, an electrician told me this should not be used in your van. This is for tents. Yes, you can use this for electric hookup when you're in your tent, but you're not in a metal box when you're in a tent. These have not got what you need for the protection in your van. Speak to an electrician and make sure you get the correct products, because you do not want to be getting electrocuted in your van. It's not particularly wise. I installed the electrics in my van myself, but before I actually flicked that switch and decided, yes, let's go, I took it down to Batteries in Solar in Plymouth to get it checked out, to make sure that the install which I'd done on the van was actually up to scratch. Made sure that all the connections were solidly tight, make sure that everything was crimped properly, make sure that it was wired up correctly. They did a thorough check on it and signed it off to say, yes, your van is safe to use, the electrics are fine. Probably costs you about an hour's labour to get that done if you're doing it yourself, but make sure it is a proper installed electrics. It's dangerous. At the end of the day, it's your pride and joy. So if you've bought a van from a converter which you're not too sure about the electrics, just take it down to an auto electrician and get them to run through the system, make sure that everything's wired up correctly, all the connections are done properly, and then it's just going to make sure that you sleep better at night knowing it's safe. Speaking of safe, you obviously need to make sure that you've got all your correct fire alarms in there, your smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, etc., your fire extinguishers. They don't cost a lot of money, 15 to 30 quid I think it is. I've actually did another video on this recently, so I'll pop the links of that below and actually the prices. Fire Angel, so you've got your Fire Angel smoke detector, carbon monoxide and fire extinguisher, which I've got the 7-in-1, because obviously you've got different ignition sources from a van. With you using potentially cooking oils, you've got your electrical fires, you've got your paper, carpet fires. So I've got a 7-in-1 extinguisher just to make sure that whatever type of fire which I have, let's hope I don't have any, that fire extinguisher will be capable of hopefully extinguishing that before anything serious happens. Diesel heaters, not going to get into the cheap Chinese diesel heaters today, don't really want to get into that. But if you're paying £800 for a diesel heater, make sure you know what brand it is, how they're going to fit it, where it's going to be installed. Seen one recently where they paid that kind of amount of money for a diesel heater by a professional conversion company, and it wasn't one of the plain R's, the Webasto's or Urbaspaccia or anything like that. It was actually one of these cheaper ones, but worse than that, it actually had its own diesel tank. So rather than feeding from the actual van's diesel tank, it had its own diesel tank, which was under the bed, in the van, under the bed. And because of the cheapness of the actual product which was used, it just wasn't right. The pipes weren't capable of what they needed to do, and there was leaks, and it was just absolutely incredible that this kind of money had been paid for a diesel heater, which one was cheap, paid a lot more than what they needed to do for that particular heater, and also it was just such a poor install. I mean, why on earth would you want your diesel tank inside your van, under where you're sleeping? Just blows my mind. Now, not all conversions that are bad are actually dangerous. Some of them are just really, really poorly thought out, and I've got more on this coming soon. But one of them which really just baffles me is, and it might just be me, you know, it's not for everybody. Like I've said before, vans are completely unique, and everybody's got a different idea of what they want in the van and how they want it to look, what colours and designs and things. But if I wake up in the morning when I've slept in my van, I'm going to put the kettle on, I'm going to have a brew, and I want milk in my brew. I need to access the fridge. Now, if my bed is blocking the fridge door, I can't open the fridge door without putting the bed up to get my milk out. It's just a poor design. So make sure you know exactly what you're getting when you're saying you want a kitchen and you want a bed. Well, how's it actually going to look? How's it all going to come together? Are you going to be able to open the fridge when you're in bed? Just things like that. Some things which are just yeah, well, you know, everybody's different, but personally, I want to get in the fridge when I wake up in the morning. So there we go. There's just some of the things which are bad conversions. If you want to see some of the good conversions, then I've got some videos here of some of the good ones around. More on this is coming soon, so please stay tuned for that. For now, thanks for watching. Take care. I shall see you soon.